everybody. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. Thank you again for joining us, and we're really glad that you're here to witness the Telos Infinity Virtual Intercom Platform product introduction. We have some really great information to share, and we can't wait to get started. I am Lindsay Klinger, the event manager with Telos Alliance, and I'm operating as your guide today. And we have Martin Dyster, Vice President of Business Development, and he's leading us through today's webinar. Also joined by several familiar faces, we have Ken Tankel, Senior Product Specialist, Eric Olson, who's our Director of Sales for US and Canada, and we have Angie Robertson, our Marketing Director. And all three of them will be monitoring and answering your questions and answers. So if you have any throughout the webinar, please use the toolbar at the bottom and click on the Q&A button and go ahead and submit those questions, and they'll be happy to help answer those for you. And then a few other items here is throughout our webinar, we will be launching a couple poll questions, and we greatly appreciate your input. And lastly, we appreciate your attendance, and you can qualify for a half credit towards your SBE recertification by attending this webinar. And now I'm going to hand it over to Martin to kick us off.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. I'll just share my screen here, and providing I share the right one. There we go. We should be seeing a splash screen. So yeah, okay. So right, here we go. Let's get into it. So I don't know, that probably should have been up while Lindsay was introducing everybody, but there's our happy faces there for you to enjoy for just a fraction of a second before I jump in. So yes, I'm Martin Dyster. I'm VP of Business Development and also the Product Director for Telos Infinity. And I'm going to talk to you today mainly about VIP, which is our new virtual intercom platform, which is part of the Telos Infinity product line. But also I'm going to start off with a bit of a recap about what Telos Infinity is. And the reason for that is well, because it leads neatly into VIP. VIP uses a lot of the same technology. It uses a lot of the same thought process actually to create the product. So what goes on under the hood with the Infinity product line is what goes on under the hood in the VIP product line. So let's get things moving. So Telos Infinity, we launched it at NAB in 2018. NAB seems a long way away, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, let's not dwell on that too long. But anyway, we launched Telos Infinity in 2018. We had the first couple of systems sold at the time, and it came out with a big fanfare, an intercom system that's very, very different to anything that's gone before. And why is it different? Well, you know, this is the headline news. There's no central matrix in the Telos Infinity product. It's an intercom system designed around audio over IP that operates without a central matrix, which I mean, for one thing, it means that you don't have to buy that central frame. You don't have to shell out all those dollars for the you know, the core piece. But part of the reason that we did it was, well, firstly, it's not our first intercom product at Telos. Under the Axia brand, we produced the IC series intercom. Was sold pretty well in the radio industry. It was a point-to-point intercom, so very, very basic in terms of its functionality, and that's one of the reasons why we built the Infinity product line. So Infinity, although not our first foray into intercom, was designed to be a fully featured broadcast intercom system that would be able to compete in the broadcast television space and also in vertical markets as well. But whereas the Axia one that's gone before was more simplistic, Telos Infinity is a fully featured broadcast comm system. So how did it break the matrix? And break the matrix is a tagline that we used back at the launch. Well, we did it by putting all the intelligence that you would otherwise have had in the matrix into the panels themselves, into the panels and belt packs, meaning this highly scalable solution that we call Telos Infinity operates by having a DSP core and a mixing core inside all the devices that, when added together on a network, create a kind of, if you like, a virtual matrix that replicates a lot of the functionality using native audio over IP connectivity that you would otherwise have in a star topology matrix-based system. So we've broken the matrix with Telos Infinity. Now we've gone a step further with the virtual intercom platform with VIP, but we'll get to that in a while. But we wanted to make the user interface something that was easier to use than arguably what's gone before, but with a nod to the new generation of people that are coming into the broadcast industry who are maybe more IT savvy than they are broadcast savvy, and are used to using different tools. So the software team that worked on the dashboard software that we use and the UI, not familiar with intercom, but familiar with the task at hand and what they were asked to produce, and came from a background of building great UI, and that's what we set out to do. Resilience is really important, of course, within intercom and within the hardware platform, and with the VIP platform, we have redundancy built in. So we have redundancy in terms of the way servers work. We have redundancy built in with SMPTE 2022-7 in the hardware product line as well. And of course, without resilience, intercom can fail. If intercom fails, it's a mission critical piece of equipment. Intercom fails, the show can go down with it. So, you know, let's make sure intercom always stays up. No central point of failure, no matrix to worry about. Again, important part. You can lose a panel, but you're not going to lose the whole intercom system. So I mentioned audio over IP. Infinity it connects natively using AES67, so all panel-to-panel comms uses AES67. All audio throughout the whole network is AES67, SMPTE 2110-30 compatible audio. We embedded voice over IP using the Opus codec using a technology called Infinity Link. So wherever you see the Infinity Link logo or you see Infinity Link mentioned, think voice over IP, think Opus, think the ability to get out beyond the local area network and connect across site to site, across remote to remote locations, to people working at home under COVID regulations, if that's if that's something we're worried about, but also connectivity now within the cloud and from cloud to on-prem. So Link has its role to play in the VIP system as well. And then finally, really important to say, although we're new to intercom, Telos Alliance is not new to audio over IP. Many of you will be familiar with the products from the radio industry, and some people will be using it 24/7. There are thousands of devices out there, whether they're mixing consoles, X nodes, processors, you name it, that use the same audio over IP technology that's at the core of the Infinity system. So looking under the hood a little bit, just going a little bit further into that distributed intelligence that I talked about. This diagram shows on the top the Infinity devices themselves and a little bit of what's going on under the hood, then the network fabric, and then the connectivity to audio over IP endpoints from the Telos family, and also dashboard, the software that's used to configure it. So let's dive in. So of course, an intercom panel, whether it's a virtual panel or a hardware panel, you need to get audio in and out of it. On the hardware panel, that's an A to D converter, D to A converter, so that microphones go in, audio through speakers and headsets comes out. Then we have these this pool of DSP mix engines, and I like to think of them as being little agile mixing consoles. That's one way to think of it. It's essentially dealing with whatever audio comes into the panel, into the device. If that's a panel that's listening to a bunch of party lines at the same time, Then when there's audio on those party lines, that audio comes in as a stream. It's mixed together. It's output through whatever the speaker device, loudspeaker device is, and the user can hear those audios. So they're dynamic in that they scale up and down to cope with however many audio streams are thrown at the panel. And that means in real numbers, in terms of the AES-67 senders and receivers combined with the mixers, there's something in the region of 60 inputs that can be handled at any one time into a panel, and up to 30 simultaneous outputs as well, resultant. And on the belt pack, it's something like 24 and 12, something like that. So if you imagine taking all that power and putting that onto a network and creating a network of devices, we have what we think of as a kind of virtual matrix, I guess. Then every device has an embedded web server, so that you can browse into it. You can see what's going on. You can change mic gains. You can make administrative changes and user changes as well. All the admins in there. So you're not running an app. You're not getting at it through a dashboard and through the menu structure. You can literally just log onto a panel and get into it, into the menu structure. Physical UI, of course, with a panel is buttons, knobs, switches, and stuff like that. With a virtual panel, those things are all replicated, but replicated in software. At least there is hardware control as well, and we'll get onto that in a bit. So dashboard is the configuration tool that's used to configure Infinity, and the way that works is it scans the network, discovers all devices that are active on the network, discovers all the streams. It uses that information to compile a database, and that database is then interpreted by a web server service called Dashboard Host. And Dashboard Host is browsed to using HTML5 compatible browser and compiles the view that we call dashboard, the configuration tool. It's very visual, very simple to use, and designed to configure the Infinity system. It doesn't need to be running for Infinity to work. There's no audio passing through it. It's not the engine under the it's not the magic under the cloak that makes it work. It's not that. We're not spoofing anything here. It really is a configuration tool that doesn't have to be running, but it's useful if it does run, because you might want to make live changes, or you may want to log what's going on and that kind of thing. Then audio over IP endpoints from other AES-67 protocols. AES-67 is a common protocol, but advertisement isn't necessarily. And those are brought natively into the Infinity system. So we don't charge extra for that privilege. We don't make you buy a card to put in your frame, because we don't have cards and there is no frame. So audio over IP that's on the same network as Infinity natively connects. And that's important to remember that when we talk about VIP and how that's interpreted in the same way. And then Telos Infinity endpoints, things like our X nodes, which are baseband to IP converters, the VX phone system, the mixing consoles and other devices that use Livewire plus AES-67. Those are all connected natively to the Infinity system and appear in dashboard as devices. So the product family itself, I'm not going to dwell on this for too long, but let's just have a quick look at the hardware product line. So that's a splash screen which shows you the choice of panels, the master panel, rack mount panel, expansion panel, a desktop panel. I've got one right next to me here. The 4 and 2 channel wired belt packs, the link gateway product, and also the software tools as well. And then VIP, this is the first look at the VIP panels, and we'll move on to those a bit later as well, and we'll have a closer look at the VIP. But connectivity, we talked about the simplicity of it, and this really is simple. You uncork the, unbox the hardware, plug it into your network switch, If you're using DHCP, you don't even have to worry about IP addresses, but if you're entering static IP addresses, connect to the switch, compatible switch for AES67, run the dashboard software, it will discover those devices and it will populate a screen and allow you to start programming the Infinity system straight away. It really is as simple as that. We talked about Link, and Link, the Opus codec or voice over IP codec, can run over it can run on any device, can run on the belt packs, can run on panels, can enable you to connect to those to the internet or connect remotely if you're using them remotely. Gateway is a dedicated hardware device that uses that can run a bunch of VI Link licenses, 8 or 16, and also we virtualized it for use in VIP. And Link, this diagram is a very simplistic diagram, but it shows how Link can be used to interconnect broadcast headquarters with a remote studio, for example, using Gateway on the left-hand side, using Link hosted on a panel on the remote studio. It's only hosting those connections, so it's converting voice over IP to AES67, which is then used by the other devices on that remote studio network. So it's not actually just that panel that can connect. Anything on the same network can connect remotely. And then a couple of belt packs in slightly different use cases for remote use. And they're really as simple as that. They can be activated as VoIP only, plugged into your ISP at home, safe in the knowledge they're not going to flood your network with multicast because that's switched off, and you can connect a belt pack on its own remotely over the internet. So dashboard, that's the key to the simplicity of configuring the system. So let's just have a look at what dashboard looks like. And I do apologize for the slightly grainy image of this slide, but you'll get the hang of it. So in the top left-hand corner, when you run dashboard, and this is what happens when you discover a system, this is how it populates. So the top left-hand quadrant comprises the devices, panels, the belt packs, and something we call virtual ports. A virtual port, not to be confused with VIP, but a virtual port is a means to pair a source and destination, or an input and an output. So it's a 4-wire pair that when populated appears in the devices section, so that you can then program the rest of the intercom system based around those key components: panels, belt packs, 4 wires. In the bottom left-hand quadrant, this is where the keys are configured for your panels and belt packs. And this is the dashboard for VIP is the same as dashboard for hardware as well. It's exactly the same. So that's where that configuration is handled. So you would literally drag the icon of a panel you want to talk to from the top left-hand screen down to the bottom onto the image of your keys of a target panel, and drop that icon on there and start using Infinity. And then on the right-hand side at the top, this is where all our 4 wires are discovered, all our IP streams, or analog and AES3 streams that are converted to IP using a device, appear up on that right-hand quadrant. So sources and destinations for I/O, GPIs and GPOs all appear up there, and you can navigate to those just by clicking on the tab and seeing all of those appear in front of you. And this is where you can manually add 4-wire IP sources from other systems that also have AES67. So, for example, your mixing console might be a console that runs Ravenna, or it might run Dante. As long as the source is AES67, you can add it manually to the I/O list, to the 4-wire list, and you can build your intercom system from there. And then in the bottom right quadrant, this is where you manage party lines, IFBs, and groups. So again, drag and drop. You drag the component parts down into a newly created PL or an IFB or a group. So you pick up your 4 wires, or you pick up your devices, You populate those functions, PLs, IFBs, and groups, and then once they're populated and you've created them, then you can allocate them to panel keys, or whatever it is you need to do. So really simple, really visual. And on those same screens, in those sub-menus, there are also other navigation keys that allow you to open devices and things like that. There's admin pages in there as well that are hidden away, so you don't go to them if you don't need to. Some basic setup stuff, a snapshot button, so you can grab a scene view of a memory of the Infinity system, and also a means to create zones. So in a large complex intercom system can be divided up into subsets, smaller dashboard views of different studios, for example, or different 4-wire categories, or whatever that might be. So dashboard is designed to be simple, and it's designed to be used hands-on. So a few other things about dashboard. I talked about most of this, unlimited party lines, groups and stuff like that. Drag and drop I talked about, native AES67. So this is really a recap. Multiple simultaneous users, it's browser based. That means that multiple people can log on to dashboard at any one time. When you buy the product, it comes with two login screens, an admin and a user, but you can add more users. They can have different privileges, they can see different parts of the system. And GPIO support we talked about. Copy and pasting devices like belt packs and panels, if they have similar configurations, you literally drag the icon of one panel onto another and it will ask you, do you want to copy? Yeah, you can just copy the whole thing in one go. Intelligent search tools for getting around more complex and heavily populated systems, so you can hone in on the piece that you want. Just go into the search bar and type the first few letters of the 4-wire you're looking for, and your 4-wire view will be limited to things with those letters in. Live configuration is how we do it most of the time, but you can also do offline configuration, and then finally snapshot memories that I mentioned before. So here's some example systems, and again, I'm just really recapping on the hardware before we jump into VIP, so that you remember how this goes together, because it all makes sense when you look at VIP as well. So this is a typical kind of small TV station, maybe a news station, single studio operation. And on the left-hand side of the candy stripe, which is your network infrastructure in the middle, you have the Infinity devices, the panels, the belt packs, all connected into the network, dashboard running in the right-hand side there, discovering all the devices on the network and starting to compile that dashboard view. And then on the right-hand side, the peripheral devices, mixing consoles. They may be connected using analog to IP conversion. They may be native AES67. It just depends on, on your personal choice and what you've bought. And then connectivity to IFB systems, to our good friends at Pliant Technologies, the CrewCom system shown there. They're our wireless partner, but the Infinity system can connect to any wireless solution that you may already own from any well-known brand, providing it's a 4-wire connection. Then you can use anything, but we would love to show you the CrewCom system. And then VX for telephony, and we had a VX webinar recently, and you can go on the website and learn more about how VX can replace your POTS and ISDN stuff. And then finally, just a recap on Link down there in the bottom right. So the next diagram is a larger broadcast system. This is obviously hasn't got all the panels on that might be on there, but it shows the breakdown of the infrastructure of how a larger Infinity system might work, starting at the top with the operational areas for TV and radio, all connected to an array of cascaded switches, then local racks rooms for those serving those areas, interconnectivity at IP level for consoles and other peripheral audio equipment. Finally, the central racks area and master control and the connectivity. And in that room, we've got some VIP servers running. We've got a VX phone controller running. We've got Pathfinder Core Pro running, which is another product that sometimes gets used in these situations. And then at the bottom, access to the wide area network where those VIP servers are feeding users or serving users with VIP virtual panels right down the bottom. Interconnectivity using Infinity Link into third-party intercom brands. We see this a lot. A lot of our customers actually use Infinity with other existing intercom systems and use Link as the means to connect them. Or connectivity to the cloud production systems that you might have from other well-known brands where intercom is needed. VIP can run alongside those. So this is a much broader representation of what an intercom and audio system can look like. And here's a few users of VIP, just a few references. WGN were user number 1, March 2018, just before NAB they went live. KTBS, the first TV user in the world. We've now got about 100 systems sold. I think it's something along those lines, and now we're shipping, or I shouldn't say shipping, but we're about to start shipping VIP. But we have sold the first VIP systems to go alongside VIP Infinity hardware. This was a use case that's a little bit different. Lollapalooza in Brazil started using Infinity on the stage set there, and then some other broadcast users and some non-broadcast clients around the world. And that leads me neatly into VIP. Okay, so let's get into the virtual product. So a little bit of a timeline of how VIP came about. Well, people have been using remote production models for quite some time. And I think the first one I heard about was probably a decade ago. And we all know the reasons for that, reducing staff at venue, using technology that you already own back at HQ. It's usually cost-driven, but it's also efficiency-driven model as well. But the technology has adapted to it well, and so has connectivity. Bandwidth is available now to connect, if not compressed, then even uncompressed video across countries. Audio as well, and there's plenty of people doing that. We've got the Olympics coming up where this will be used all the time. Formula One do it, every race weekend. Esports use it regularly. This kind of REMI technology. But March 2020, the world did stop. Broadcast certainly stopped. Sports stopped. For me, a bad day. EPL stopped. The Premier League stopped on March the 13th, and that's when people started scrambling around to find ways of doing remote production that maybe hadn't done it before, or find a different way to do remote production if they were doing it, because the model for them changed. And there's not a big gap between March 2020 and June 2020, even though it feels like it. And that's when the EPL started up again, and that's when a lot of sports started up again, including in the US. I guess the baseball season started to happen around that time. So, the things started to come back to a form of normal, and obviously we're not really back there yet. But the REMI model was really important at this point. But the big difference is that the remote teams, the production teams, weren't necessarily at HQ anymore. They were just dispersed around around in their homes, using their garages, using their kitchens, using their tabletops, and probably all seen behind the scenes videos and read articles about that. So it meant technology had to adapt, or broadcasters had to adapt their technology to make it fit. And that meant that content providers started to look to companies like Telos and started to look for virtual solutions. And our phone rang pretty soon after, after March 2020. We started getting calls because Infinity can be remoted in its hardware form. So that got us thinking, what are people asking for? Well, they're asking for an intercom system that can be deployed anywhere and can be deployed easily and quickly, and have the agility and the scalability to adapt to a new way of working. So integration with hardware and software, I hope, goes without saying, because not all the tools can be virtualized, and people are still using a lot of hardware. Certainly were back in 2020, trying to find a way to integrate a virtual world with a hardware world. Obviously, proprietary solutions are restrictive in what they can do. So we come from a standards-based world here at Telos. So a standards-based intercom system in the virtual world based on VIP, based on Infinity, is what we wanted to do. But we also started to hear more about software as a service, particularly in sports and events where the need to scale up a system for a short period of time is hugely important. Customers don't want to pay capex for a product they're only going to use for 2 hours on a Saturday to cover the game. Intercom panels that can be deployed on any device, a PC, a mobile, a tablet, integrated with hardware control ideally, and we'll get onto that in a second, and also for intercom particularly, be fully featured. And there are cloud and server-based intercom systems out there. Some of them are remote to matrix solutions. We looked at it differently. We thought what we need here is something that acts like a real intercom system, but has the ability to be deployed in the ways that the market's asking for. So what is VIP? That's the big question, isn't it, really? So it's a cloud-based intercom system. It's us reimagining. That's the word I don't necessarily think is the right word for this presentation, but it is taking what we've done in the hardware product and finding a way to deploy it in the virtual world. So that literally is kind of peeling off the lid of the hardware product and then redeploying it in a software form on a cloud server, but equally on an on-prem server. Virtualizing dashboard, which up until this point had been a Windows only package, and finding a way to run it on a VM, not just a Windows VM, but run it in Linux as well, so it can be truly deployed on a server without the overhead of having to run embedded Windows. Virtualize the link codec so that we can connect within the cloud, but also back down to the ground to on-prem. And then the bit that's taken all the time, you know, full disclosure, is the back-end stuff. The security aspects, which my colleague Ken's going to talk to you about shortly, some of the stuff that's gone into it. Uptime metrics for those software as a service users, so that we can audit the system, so we can bill them for the use, and all the other things that go into it. Devices accessed by a browser, so anybody can use them with any device. We didn't want to come out the gate with an app-based product. For one thing, it would slow us down, but also because it wasn't necessary. And using WebRTC technology and Opus that has allowed us to do that. So the technology that we're using, and some of you may be familiar with Docker. Docker is a means to containerize software. So that means that individual panels, each panel is contained within one Docker instance, and Docker is managed on a common server. So if you need an 8-panel VIP system, you run 8 Docker containers on the same server, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, and those panels talk to one another. When they're deployed in the same server, they maintain the same AES-67 multicast infrastructure that we've deployed in the hardware system, and they use the same distributed model that I showed you in that slide way back at the beginning of this presentation. So VIP works the same way as the hardware system in every way when it's deployed on the same server. And it can be expanded and scaled up with more and more panels, or, you know, however many panels you want on an ad hoc basis. So it's much easier to scale up, arguably, than a hardware system where you know, you have to wait for the delivery and take it out of the box and all that stuff. But hybrid subsystems also need 4 wires. You know, we have to still connect to camera operators, to talent, pick up mix minuses and presenter prehears and stuff like that. So that's where having link deployed in the cloud or on the server is important. That's how we get our 4 wires in and out. We can use AES-67 unicast linear 24-bit PCM, or we can use Opus. We will have NDI in the not too distant future. That's something that's being worked on right now, because a lot of customers ask for NDI. It's popular as well. So Opus and Link is the key to connecting to external systems and internal systems within the cloud. If you're going to use a panel, you need a secure connection. So we use something called the beacon server, which Ken will explain a little bit more. And you create an invitation for people to connect to an Infinity panel via a secure connection using WebRTC and Opus. So only the person that you want to have access to the panel has access, and the audio is encrypted and cannot be hacked. And the invitation mechanism allows people to have access to a panel for as long as they need, or as long as you want them to have access. So it's a built-in calendar and invitation into the invitation mechanism. As I said before, on-prem or cloud deployment, and we've also integrated hardware control using the Elgato Stream Deck device, which I hope some of you will be familiar with. I'm sure you will. If not, if you look up Stream Deck online, you'll get a hit straight away. You'll see that they're not expensive, and you can buy them from Amazon and other online web stores. So the product itself, and most of this I've covered, but it's important because it's just a bit of a recap, because we're going to have one of our polls in a second. So we can scale up software servers, systems of any size. We can support both on-prem and cloud models. We can support a software as a service, or a buyout model, subscription models, those kind of things as well. So we have those options available. We have a choice of panel sizes currently. Systems that use at the moment, proof of concepts of 8 and 16 keys are the ones that we've shipped so far, but we are also introducing 4-key panels and 36 keys. The 4 and the 8s deploy really well on phones. The 16s and the 36 are more useful, I guess, for desktop or tablet use. But either way, they have the shift pages that the hardware panels use. They have the same functionality built in. And then link gateway is on board. A link gateway license is shipped with every server. So you get a gateway 16 out the box, but you can add more. And we have proof of concepts out there running in AWS right now. We have several running in Google Cloud now as well. So I need to update this slide, of course. And we can help you with beta tests and POC systems. But since I wrote this slide, we've also sold several systems as well. So, you know, we've got VIP going out into the world. So that leads to this poll question, which Lindsay will post up, which is, which purchase model best fits your need? So I think that that can hang there for a little while. Even if, as I move the slide deck on, that can stay there. Am I right, Lindsay? Just wave your hands erratically.
Yep.
Yep.
You're good to go.
God, you've got a big thumb. Oh no, it's near to the camera. Sorry, it's aspect. No, it is. Yeah, wow. So yeah, yeah. Do take your time if you can, and jump in and help us out there. So that leads us neatly on to the next slide, which is connectivity and security. And Ken's just going to take over for a second and talk to you about how we do that with VIP. Over to you, Ken.
Thank you, Martin. Hello, everyone. One of the questions that's asked whenever we talk about this with a client is they want to know a little bit about what's behind the curtain. And so Martin thought it would be good to talk about that briefly. When we talk about a cloud deployment, that's a kind of a fuzzy term, because your cloud can be an on-prem cloud. In other words, you can have a data center and you can have places globally located, or at least geographically separate locations, which all share into that facility. That becomes your own cloud, and it's an on-prem. Or we can talk about the internet. In both cases, we wanted the interconnectivity to be secure. And instead of inventing security, we're using security protocols that exist. WebRTC is a secure protocol that covers both the encryption of data and the encryption of audio. DTLS and SRTP are the two different methods of encryption. One of those is used for data, and the other one, which is a very fast encryption mechanism, is used for the audio, so that the latencies are reduced as much as possible. So there are three parts to making a connection when you connect from your VIP server system out to people who are using this in various locations. And the way that that's done is you send an invitation to someone. For instance, someone can have a panel on their cell phone or on a tablet or on a laptop, and you can send them an invitation. That invitation is sent using something we call the beacon server. The beacon server connects to either your, or in the case of our proof of concepts, to our own email server. And that's where an email is sent. Within that email is an invitation to a specific address with a password that allows connection into the system. That connection is a WebRTC connection, and encryption is part of WebRTC. You don't make that connection without encryption. And if you've taken some time to read the slide while I've been speaking, then you'll understand a little bit about how that works. If you can go to the next one for me, Martin. So aside from our beacon server, there is a technology, a technique, a protocol called ICE, which uses a stun and turn server. When you're using a POC that we supply, a proof of concept, you're using our stun and turn server, but this is a facility that you can put up yourself on a server on your internal network or a server on the web. You can even lease this service from an existing company on the web, where you get the stun and turn services supplied to you at X amount per month. But what these do is, when you have somebody, for instance, on a cell phone, and they get an invitation to connect, when they want to send that invitation, they don't know what their public IP address is. And so it goes to a stun server. The stun server returns back to the user. This is invisible to the user, returns to them their public address. And then that in turn is supplied to the VIP server as the address that they are going to make the connection to. A turn server is for cases where there is simply not enough bandwidth, even for a low bitrate audio connection. A turn server is on the web and provides a location where your phone or your laptop or whatever is running a panel can go to the turn server, and the turn server turns that. It receives it at a higher bit rate and returns a higher bit rate to the VIP server. It's not often needed, but it is one of the things that assures connection. And again, all of the communications that goes back and forth, what I refer to as data, the request for the connection, the password, all of that is encrypted. And then when the audio starts, the audio is also encrypted. So this is how we make connections that are point-to-point, that are secure, and they are secure both if you're on the public internet and if you are doing this within an extended what we would call an on-prem cloud network that is extending to various facilities, even if those extensions might include a connection that goes through the public internet, as well as totally private, say fiber connections, using fiber connects directly between the places, or VPNs. So that's a little look behind what goes on in creating the VIP system.
Great, thank you, Ken. That's excellent. I always learn a little bit more every time Ken goes through that stuff. So, so thanks. I hope everybody else did as well. So this next slide actually follows in neatly to some of what Ken was talking about. But if you think way back to the architecture diagram that I showed earlier, right at the beginning of VIP under the hood, this is Infinity under the hood. This is VIP under the hood. And this schematic shows how the server works. So on the left-hand side of the vertical gray stripe, which is the internal multicast network, you have the Docker containers running the panels, running the link gateway dashboard, and the beacon server as well, and those are connected to the multicast network in exactly the same way. Then in the hardware model, the hardware panels are connected. Then you have extended connectivity out to the outside world, across the internet or within local area networks via the two Ethernet interfaces. And then you have the other component parts that help to run the server, the license server, the code meter that we talked about, and also the operating system and other stuff like that helps to run the Linux instance. So We're recording this webinar, and you'll of course be able to get hold of it and have another look, but so I won't stop on this one for long, but it gives you an insight into how the system works. So moving into some of the other elements, on the right hand side of this screen, this is an open source product called Portainer, which is part of the Infinity VIP system. So this is deployed with the on-prem and the cloud-based system, and it's a management system for containerized software. So it's very easy for users to be able to go in if, for example, they for whatever reason they need to stop their panels. Maybe they're not using them and they want to stop them to cut down on data charges and stuff like that on the cloud instance. Then Portainer is an easy way to go in. And it uses, you might be able to see there, simple stop, pause, start, resume kind of functionality to be able to manage the activity of your containers. The other elements of this slide give you a look into the license web UI, so that if you're running an 8-panel system and you want to add more panels, this is how you can get hold of a license and increase the number of panels if you want to do that, increase the number of link connections that you have on board, and also some other elements of the setup menu there. These are images of, well, these are screen grabs actually of the VIP panels themselves. So I don't think on this webinar we're going to have time to get into a hands-on, but we might do. The answer to the question, Rainier, is yes, it can. I'll actually leave one of my colleagues to answer that one a bit more thoroughly. Sorry, I jumped into that. So the panels there, it shows 16 key panels running on a laptop, just running in a browser right at the bottom, a 16 key panel in that's just been squeezed to show on a tablet, and you can just do that by reshaping your browser, and it will automatically scale the panel to fit onto the panel, and then on an 8-key panel on a phone. This is shows Stream Deck in use. So we've written a plugin for Stream Deck, a Telos Infinity plugin for Stream Deck, so that you can program a Stream Deck to remote control the instance of a VIP panel that might be open on a device at your location. It's important to say that the Stream Deck is actually browsing to the server. It is not controlling the browser at your location. It is controlling the keys on the panel that you are also browsing to, that's an important definition. So you do need to have a panel open somewhere on a device that you can talk to and listen to, but it doesn't have to be the same computer that the Stream Deck is plugged into. So that differentiation is there. You could be running the VIP panel on a phone and be using a Bluetooth headset while you're sat at your desk position, but you could be controlling it from a Stream Deck that's plugged into your laptop. Okay, so just sort of clear that one up. It's not controlling the same browser instance that you've necessarily got open on another device. I mentioned the invitation server. So these screen grabs are from the invitation server, and on the left it shows you the VIP server and how you can access the panels, how you can add an invitation. There's some invitations stacked up there shown on the screen. Invitations from me to connect to VIP1 and my colleague Machi to connect to VIP1. When you create an invite, on the right hand side, it shows the name that you can give to it so that the recipient understands that they're being invited to the morning show, their email address, a validity period from and to, so that you can share panels between different people by staggering the time that they have access to them. So you can have cascaded invitations. This is an older version from the screen grab, but admin can block a user If they block the use for a period of time, they can then unblock it. So it might be a case of just stopping somebody using it for a period of time, or somebody else is using the panel. You could administer it that way. You can delete somebody's use of a panel, or you can edit the invitation so that it extends their use if you decided they want it for longer, or if they don't want it for quite so long, you can curtail that as well. So the invitation server, we're doing a lot more work on that, and we will be doing integration with Active Directory and things like that. It's a question that comes up a lot. You know, can we extend that use of the invitation server? Can we use other directories that might be on the same computer or on a phone? And the answer is not right now, but you will be able to do that. You'll also be able to do integration with other calendars and that kind of thing. So that's a work in progress that we're expanding the feature set to. And then when you get an email, on the left-hand side there, an invitation to connect to a VIP panel. It auto-generates a password. Click on Join Now, paste the password into the session, and the panel will open in front of you. It will usually ask if you want your browser to use your mic and speaker, and if you say yes, then you'll be connected and you'll start using an intercom panel on your device straight away. So let's look at some deployment options, and we've got another poll coming up here. So we'll leave this poll running while I'm talking about the deployment options. You may not be able to answer this at the end until the end, but which of the deployment options would you prefer is the question on your screens now, and you may well know the answer. But let me go through some of the options, and by all means, you know, wait till you see the one that you want to tick. So deployment options. The first one, on-prem version. This is one that's really popular amongst people that we've been talking to. This is using our appliance server, typically using connectivity over the internet, using technology like Link. But here's a nice diagram. So Broadcast HQ down in the left-hand corner is using a VIP server that we've supplied. It comes preloaded with up to 64 VIP panels that you can use. Because it's native AES-67 connectivity, it can also connect to your on-prem devices natively. So those could be hardware Infinity panels. It could be other Telos Alliance products like Axia mixing consoles or VX. And this gives you that hybrid operation of virtual panels and other audio over IP subsystems. So it might be an intercom from another brand, it might be a mixing console from another brand, but this allows you to connect VIP and use virtual panels with any audio over IP, or indeed any audio device, because we can convert AES-67 back to analog. Or to anything else. So this opens up VIP to any user of any system. It means it can be extended, so VIP users can connect using any of the devices we talked about. If you are getting into using cloud production services, and when I talk about that, I mean products like LiveView, like VizRT, like Grass Valley AMP. You know, there are plenty of them out there that you might want to connect. That's where Link comes in. Link can connect to the cloud if you're using an on-prem server. But WebRTC and Opus connect natively to the panels. And then if you want to connect to hardware panels from us or from another brand, then you can also connect those over the internet or over VPN. So very, very popular, and our first systems sold are based around this model. So we have two or three, three systems, I think now on their way out the door that replicate this model. Then this is one that's come up from the sports broadcast, has been really popular, particularly with the pandemic reaction that I talked about, where VIP on the cloud can be used. Equally, it could be on-prem, usually with somebody else's third-party matrix comm system, using Infinity Link as the connectivity between them. Sorry, I flicked my mouse there. Opus in the cloud, remote VIP panels, and also optional Infinity hardware panels. So yeah, let's look at that one. So that's the same one. I clicked the wrong button. Duh, what a dope. Hang on. There we go. That's the one I was after. Sorry. Yeah, let me just get my datum point again. Yeah, that's the one I was after. Sorry. So yeah, so what you can see there is an HQ where, again, third-party audio subsystems might be connected using link. There's a hardware link gateway there connecting up to the VIP server, which is running in the cloud, and then that is in turn connected to comms at the venue. In this case, it's just shown as a sports stadium, but it could be any kind of venue for a live event. And those Infinity comms panels, VIP virtual panels, are connected as an extended part of whatever the comms system is at HQ, or on a truck, you know, whatever it is on a truck or wherever that might be, the model remains. And the venue comms could also be using hardware Infinity devices or hardware devices from any other brand. And of course, a remote production team might be working at home as well. So this hybrid model is one that's very popular. We've got a lot of proof of concepts out there that follow this model entirely, and it's also proved to be very, very popular. So this is an odd one, I guess, in that. Or is it? I'm out of sequence on my slides. I do apologize for this. So this is a cloud version again, but where potential users are using third-party cloud production services from some of the brands that I talked about on the on an earlier slide. So this is where VIP could be deployed in the cloud, in the same data center as cloud production services. And again, I'll go back to the likes of Grass Valley AMP or LiveView or VizRT, or any of the brands that are doing that, Simply Live. Connectivity between the VIP cloud server and those services that are then integrated into the rest of the production environment, whether remotely to remote panels, whether to broadcast HQ using link, or whether to operators running remotely. And then the final model, which is a bit of a strange one, but one that we've heard come up, best described by the diagram. This is where you might have somebody delivering content to a service, streaming service, OTT, whatever that might be, a broadcaster that is receiving content from affiliates or third parties. For example, might be a sports broadcaster is receiving content from different trucks, from different broadcasters. Each of those 4 locations is using a third-party comm system that is otherwise quite difficult to integrate together. And this is a model that we've seen a few times where people are starting to try out using Infinity Cloud VIP in the cloud, and they are connecting using link their various comm systems. VIP is creating the platform to support their party lines, peer-to-peer connectivity, whatever that might be, IFBs even, and is acting as the interface that's corralling all those intercom signals together and delivering them between the locations. So everyone can party line together, everybody can connect one-to-one in whatever way that might be. And this is an interesting one that we've seen. And of course, this also means that there can be remote users using VIP as well, or even using Infinity hardware panels in any of those locations as well. So that brings me to the end of the PowerPoint side of the presentation, and leads us neatly onto the poll results. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Lindsay to talk about the results. Do you want to do that, Lindsay, or do you want me to do that? I don't mind either way.
Well, Angie was just going to pop in here. We are going to go over the poll questions or the poll results, and then we also have some time for Q&A. So if some of those folks want to hang tight with us for a few more minutes, we'll address those. So Martin, I'm going to pop up some results here. I have 2 polls to share. The first one here is the waiting room one. So if you want to make a couple comments about this, and then I'll pop up the next one when you're ready.
Okay, so how do you feel about virtualized comms? Well, 38% I think it's essential for efficient cloud production, which sort of really resonates with what we've heard, that cloud production is missing a comms component. That's what we heard, loud and clear, and that it's something that's really useful. And not all of you have answered this are going to be involved in cloud production anyway. We have seen people asking about backup comms, and whether or not that's something that they might want to get into. So we've looked at that model with a few people. So again, it's quite a big number of people who are interested in that. And thank you, a great way to supercharge my existing system. And we totally agree with that one. And the models that I showed, I think. And the kind of way people have been asking. So currently using a virtualized comms system is a very small number, though we like that. That means that there's 97% of you who probably need one. And I think it's cool, but not necessary. Yeah, you'll change your mind. And just here to check out, the competition. So hello, everybody from the competition that's on the call. I can't necessarily see. Oh, yes, I see 1 or 2 names I recognize. So thank you. How do you feel about virtualized intercom? Oh, sorry, that's the one we just did. I won't. Which are the following deployment options? Yeah, appliance is the leader there, and actually that's not all that surprising. Cloud production is not a place that everybody's going, but a lot of people are, and 22% of you are interested in that. Yeah, we're really interested in talking to people who are interested in the hardware appliance. Absolutely, that's been the most popular, and these results have borne it out. So yeah, great. Thank you very much.
So Martin, I think I'm going to close us out. In looking at the Q&A, thanks to Ken and Eric, they were able to answer those questions. Many of them were answered publicly, so attendees should have seen those in the Q&A box. And since we're over time, we'll probably just close it out. And I will say, look for an email from Lindsay by the end of the week. And this will include a link to the recorded version of the webinar, and also how to contact us if you'd like to continue the discussion or have any questions. If you want to reach out to anybody prior to that, inquiry at telosalliance.com is monitored 24/7 all around the world. That's a really easy and quick way to get a hold of us. So thank you everybody for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Thanks.
Bye.